Welcome to the Nesiva Shalom and all Parsha for Parshas Noach. And thank you, Cheder Miami and Kahal Havas Torah of Miami Beach for hosting this recording. In this week's Parsha, the pasuk at the end is very similar to the pasuk at the end of last week's Parsha, but there's a critical difference and a critical question. Because it says here, Vayarach Hashem Esreach Hanichoach, after the Mabul, after the Korban of Noach, Hashem smelled, as it were, that pleasant smell. And he said to himself, Lo usif el kal odas ha'adama, I will no longer curse the earth. Why? Ki yetzer lev ha'adam rami ne'urav. Saying about why he will not do it is because the yetzer of a person is rami ne'urav. And that's why I will not curse them anymore. But what's challenging about this, the Rebbe asks, is that in last week's Parsha, describing the reason for the Mabul, the pasuk sounds very similar. In last week's Parsha it reads, Vayar Hashem ki rabara asa adam ba'aretz. Shem saw that there was great evil in the land. The chol yetzer machshavos libo rak ra kol hayom, and the yetzer of a person was rak ra kol hayom. So here it says that Hashem will not curse the world because he says the yetzer hara is overwhelming, and in last week's parsha he says that he has to wipe out the world because the yetzer hara is overwhelming. The Rebbe points out that there are distinct words and very important words that are found last week that are no longer here. In last week's parsha, when it says that he has to wipe out the world, Hashem says that it's rak ra kol hayom. Both the word rak and the word kol describe extenuating and extreme circumstances of how serious the problem is. And that the ra was in the aretz. It was all the way into the land. Here it says, yetzer lev ha'adam rami ne'urav. Yes, it's called ra, but not rak, not kol, and not ba'aretz. And the Rebbe says that there are two kinds of dominions of ra. One is when ra, sure, is taking place and we can identify that there is a yetzer hara, there is a transgression, there is a problem. But it has not yet reached a place, like in last week's parsha, leading into the Mabul, the cause of the Mabul, that is called ba'aretz, in the land, meaning throughout the land, and rak only, and when it says kol, it's everywhere. You see, we know from Rashi in last week's parsha, and from the very reality of the Mabul, that the Rebbeinu Shalom brought the Mabul because the level of degradation had reached so severely that Ra was showing on the whole world. In that, even the animals, Rashi tells us, were completely involved in licentious behavior that's not common to animals. And the land itself had to be reduced in its size because the ra caused by the human beings was so vulgar and so impure that it spread into the animal kingdom and into the land itself. When that happened, there's wipeout. But in this week's parsha, Hashem says, I smell the proper smell. I smell what's going on, that man indeed is rami ne'urav. This means that the yetzer hara comes into a person before the yetzer tov. And the Rebbe says that children, we can know, are inclined towards not listening to people. It isn't until later that they develop a proper course of character that makes them follow the rules. And so it's not totally ra. It's not rak ra. It's not all the way in ba'aretz or kol, but it's still ra. And here the Rebbe says that the same thing happened with Sodom. You see, Sodom's penetration of the ra did not go into the whole world, but it did. It was mispashet all the way into that place, such that it had to be wiped out. Why was that so? Because of the concept of zela umas zebar elokim. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought into the world Avram Avinu and his koach of chesed, on account of that, there had to be a corresponding negativity, the achzorios, the cruelty of Sodom. And it became so manifest that Sodom had to be wiped out. And so Sodom was wiped out. Sometimes it can even happen to a person, where a person does not catch himself and becomes totally spread into it, the negativity. And this is how the Rebbe learns about the death of Er, the son of Yehuda, in the coming Parshios. But it's a very important idea for us, because you see, the Rebbe says someplace else, and here indeed he says it as well, but he says, I say it someplace else, that the pasuk says in Parshas Balak, Lo hibit oven b'Yakov v'lo ra'am al b'Yisrael, ki Hashem l'kav imo usuras melech bo. What does it mean that Hashem does not see any iniquity in man? After all, people do things wrong, and we're not allowed to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a vatrin, that he just excuses things as though how we act doesn't matter. But the Rebbe explains that when is it true that Hashem does not see a person, the negativity in a person, is when Hashem Elokav imo, when Hashem is God is with him. The Rebbe says something so powerful here. We do averos. We do things that are wrong. When we do things that are wrong, Hashem can still be with us there. When is that? When we feel charata. We feel badly that we do things wrong. When a person sins, when he has oven b'Yaakov, when he has transgression, but in that moment, Hashem Elokav imo, he doesn't say, I don't care. He doesn't say, that's it, I'm throwing it all off. In that moment, he feels regret. That charata is Hashem Elokav imo in the moment of his sin. That is when Hashem says, I can see lo ra oven b'Yaakov v'lo ra amo b'Yisrael. There a person does not have the negativity that was mispashe, that spread itself all the way into him. And there a person remains like the Ra that's described after the Mabul. You see, the Ra that's before the Mabul brings total wipeout. It's spread all the way through. But that's not us. We may do things that are wrong, but we can still do tshuva. There's still a fire inside of us that wants to be close to Hashem, so much so that when we do the things that are the worst things we do, we still feel bad about it. And we have charata in that moment. And there, Hashem Elokav imo, Hashem, your God, Hashem, our God, is with us. Hashem should bless that as we go through the challenges of life, and as we go through the opportunities that present ourselves, the things we accepted on ourselves, after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, after Sukkot, after Shmini Atzeres, perhaps the things, as we said last week, that the whole learning should be Lili Nishmas Rabbi Hauer, Zechat Tzadik Livracha, and the things that we were makabel to do in order to awaken ourselves, perhaps in his memory as well. Those things, we will fail sometimes. We will make mistakes. The important thing is that Hashem Elokav imo, Hashem is with us in those mistakes, and we don't allow the bad to spread and spread and spread until I can't remember that I wanted to do the right thing. I can't, chas v'shalom, even remember that I am one of the children of Hashem who's commanded and elevated by his mitzvos. May Hashem strengthen us that we, although we admit that we have challenges, although we admit that we do things wrong, that we have the Ra that is inside of a person, Mina Urav, that we're trying to overcome. That is the Ra that's even after the Mabul. But in that after the Mabul, Hashem promises, I know you have Ra. I know there's Ra inside of you. But lo osif lakal, I will not curse anymore. I will protect the world forever. The Shmira Elyona should be with every one of us, that we can realize our greatest potential. Have a great Shabbos.